sent out an international time converter to all my groups this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did too, but posted.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. And will everyone please mute so that we don't have background noise that disturbs people and things. I will keep the chat window open in case you need to tell me something, and I'll try to pay attention, but don't count on it. And we're going to start this morning. I'm sorry we've lost another very dear and cherished member of our community in these last week or so. And Bev Wilburn, in whose living room Not Church actually started, is here for a tribute to our dear Kathleen Dwyer. So Bev, please, if you would.
Thank you. And thank you for asking me to share a little bit about Kathleen and all she's meant, not only to myself, but in starting being the first home that we did have what you now call Not Church. And as many of you know, Kathleen did pass away on Monday, March the 1st. She'd been struggling with cancer for over 6 years, but she was able to be at home with her family when she passed on. What some of you might not know, and what Nadine was just referring to, is that Kathleen was one of the people first involved in starting what you now call Not Church. My first husband, Gary, who was a Presbyterian minister, wanted to have an Easter service down here in La Mission. We had just moved down here full time, and Kathleen said, of course, you can use my home to have this service. That was in April 2008. We held the service in the lower room of Kathleen's home, and there were probably around 20 of us there for that first meeting. Erin Dunnigan, who we had just met the month before, was there, and she was in charge of the tape player. We didn't have musical instruments for that first service, so she made sure that when the time was right, she hit the buttons so that we could all sing together, Morning Has Broken. Gary did the sermon, Erin played the tape for us, we all sang, and she also read scripture. At the end of our first service, we then had a potluck, which has become world famous for all of the events that have taken place at Kathleen's house. Kathleen and her late husband, Jim, wanted their home to be used for the good of the community and to make a difference in the world. There have been weddings, celebration of life services, and many church services in the Dwyer Casa. Kathleen opened her home to the All Saints Church every summer in August so that the kids could come down and do work projects. She would have as many as 23 young people on the floor everywhere in her house, and they would stay there for 3 to 4 days in August and then go out and do these projects in our community. They painted classrooms at our schools, they worked on the food bank, and they also worked on the orphanages in our area. And let us not forget the parties, just for the sake of having a party. Kathleen loved to dance, she loved to laugh, and she loved making everyone feel welcome no matter where she was. Kathleen's and Jim's dream of caring for us has all been a gift come true. Kathleen was also the founder of the La Mission Children's Fund, which was started over 12 years ago, a dream that she worked on without fail to make sure that we got that 501c3 so that we could continue to do the work that we're still doing in the community. I could go on forever about all the things that Kathleen has done and given us, but I can't because we only have 20 minutes before you guys get to talk later. But later today, maybe think about Kathleen, raise a shot glass because she loved her tequila. Thank her for all that she's given to us, to this community that we all call home. I miss her every day. but I also remember her smile, her beautiful face, and her sparkling blue eyes. And until we can all dance together again, thank you for letting me have this time to share a little bit about her.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you for that beautiful tribute, and we will all miss her. Our theme today is Triumph of the Human Spirit. And Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you now to do a short reading.
Thanks, Nadine. Quick thank you to Bev for that wonderful tribute to Kathleen. Of course, Not Church is now a global reach, so there's a lot of you out there who never met Kathleen, but I hope you can feel the honor in which she is held and the love and respect that anyone who ever met her felt for her. Thank you very much, Bev. This last year has provided us with many challenges to test our strength of spirit, but this is not at all new in our history. All of our ancestors went through times like this, and many of them experienced far, far worse plagues, much more severe than this one. And they were far less understood than what we understand about what is happening with us now. If we are here, anyone who is alive on this planet right now, obviously our ancestors survived. They didn't, we, you, or me, we wouldn't be here now. Now, this is not to diminish what we're going through, but it is to be reminded that we all do have this long legacy going back almost to the beginning of time. Humanity has faced so many unjust, unimaginable challenges, and the resiliency of the human spirit is incredible. Even if you feel anxious or afraid, it's worthwhile from time to time remembering that your ancestors went through things like this and much more, including famines and incredible wars. The list is very, very long, and yet here we are. We all come from this line of incredible resiliency. Not just a resiliency of our physicality and our will, but also a resiliency of spirit that can be easy to forget in times of great challenge. But it's there. It's part of our history. None of us would be here without it. And it's also a private part of our present moment and this world right now. There are many people doing incredible acts of charity and compassion and love and extraordinary bravery in responding to this challenge we're all having, with many people quite literally putting their lives on the line for the sake of others. The human spirit kind of has a way of coming through sometimes. Sometimes moments of great challenge actually evoke the human spirit in us in ways that can be quite powerful. We can be reminded also of what's important, truly, truly, truly important in our lives. And maybe in some small measure, maybe in a big measure, we will be reminded again of how deep our caring really is for one another, for life. Moments like this can give rise to incredible compassion. But the more connected each one of us is, the more connected in ourselves, then we become a foundation. We find a foundation from which to encounter this moment. That's from Adyashanti, The Resiliency of the Human Spirit.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, so let's do a short meditation. The one we're going to do today is drawn from several sources, including Melinda's beautiful heart coherence meditation that we did last month. Ramana Maharshi, one of the most revered wise men of the 20th century, called his meditation Cave of the Heart, which Locke Kelly expanded to something more understandable by Western audiences. The cave is a safe refuge, a place to go anytime you need a break, anytime your heart locks up and needs to open. Our biological heart is on the left side of our chest. The The heart chakra, or energy center, is described as being in the center of our chest. On the right side is the cave of the heart, a safe, empty space where our physical heart would be if it were on the right side of our chest. So now please join me, gently close your eyes and take a couple deeper than regular breaths. Notice the activity of thoughts in your head. As you're aware of the space inside where thoughts are occurring, unhook your awareness from thoughts and let it drop down from your head. Let it float like a leaf through your neck, feeling any sensations in your throat and in your upper chest. Let it float until it lands softly into the velvety, dark, still cave of the heart. Pretend like your breath is flowing in and out through that peaceful, dark space. And as you continue to breathe a little more slowly and a little more deeply than you normally do, focus on a feeling of calm and ease, an alert, restful peace. You're aware of everything inside of you, everything outside your body, and all around you. But don't think or examine. Don't recall or imagine. Don't try to make anything happen. Just rest your awareness for a few moments in the dark, safe cave of your heart. Maria, thank you, everyone.
Lynn, are you with us?
She's there.
Ah, there.
I'm just trying to work out. There we go. I'm having a bit of trouble setting up. I'm now set up. I'm ready. I'm so glad Maria emailed me because otherwise I wouldn't have known. I just saw this email come in and I thought, what?
Well,
Complete
no,
panic.
I'm going to talk about you for a second.
Okay, I'll shut up.
One of the things I really love about this community is it feels magical in the way people are drawn to it. And it really feels as though Lynn was meant to cross paths with us here in La Mission, albeit from so far away. It was magic meeting you, Lynn. I met her on an international Zoom Ceilidh. A Ceilidh is a Scottish or Irish gathering of music, song, storytelling, and poetry. And Lynn read a poem or two, and I was captivated and reached out to her because I'm into poetry. But then I found out, without her telling me, just how amazing her work is. And this is a very modest, warm, welcoming human being. And I am thrilled to have introduced you to Not Church, Lynne. I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to let you talk because your work speaks for itself, and I can't wait to hear about it. So this is Lynne Jones, everybody. So glad you could be with us.
You're muted, Lynne.
Yeah, I have to remember to unmute, and I have to apologise that when my computer is unmuted and other people speak, which I hope you will, there's a dreadful echo. I don't know what to do about it. First of all, I just want to say, hello, Mum. The person called Vicky on the screen is my mum, and it's the first time she's joined me in an international Zoom call, so I have to wave to her. Hi, Mum. Thank you. She's amazing. And thank you, Vicky. Vicky is our wonderful carer. I hope she'll stick her head in the picture. And she set this all up for us. So here you are. You're in Mexico. I'm in West Cornwall. My mother's in London, and we can all be at the same reading. Right. So what I want to do is just to say briefly how this book came about, read a little bit. I'm going to read one of the children's stories. I'm going to focus on Mexico. What a surprise. and then hopefully there'll be time for you to ask me questions or anything like that. So the book came about because I'm a rather weird child psychiatrist who spent most of my professional life doing aid work in very professional settings with big international NGOs and traveling around in disaster areas. And about 6 years ago, I had a part-time job in the NHS in the UK, which didn't allow me to go abroad for months at a time. But secondly, I felt quite fed up with the way professional humanitarian aid worked. And now it's actually become the topic of the moment with the kind of decolonizing aid movement that's going on. But 6 years ago, I just felt really uncomfortable that I always seemed, it really came home to me in Mozambique, that I was at the top of a pyramid, which was increasingly white as you went up it, and this is in Mozambique, and increasingly better paid as you went up it, and increasingly far removed from the front line as you went up it. So the frontline workers in Mozambique, they were early child development, they were nursery specialists, were volunteers who were trying to grow mangoes in their fields and working for nothing. And at the top were the people getting the grants from the World Food Programme and being paid loads of money. And I was somewhere in the middle saying I was really unhappy working with people who were paid nothing. And I decided if I was going to go on doing this kind of work, I wanted to do it in a different way. And then the migrant crisis hit. And hit is literally the word, because suddenly in Calais, in Greece, in the Mediterranean, there were people moving, drowning, struggling to make it to anywhere that offered a better life. And I was able to go and volunteer in that crisis. And of course, volunteering doesn't, it meant I could work for free, people who had nothing, and I couldn't have done it if they weren't an amazing foundation, two of whom are the founders and runners of that foundation are here tonight. I can't see their faces, but I can see the thing, Rights and Opportunities Foundation. Neil and Kristen, thank you, because I couldn't have done any of this work without you, because they've paid I and my husband's expenses. And most of that's in the book, and I'm not going to go into more detail. I'm going to talk particularly about one of the biggest pleasures of the work was when I came to Mexico, where they both live, in Baja, not far from you, and we were able to work together in Mexico. So it's really a joy to read the bits. And Kristen introduced me to her Mexican colleagues who were working with young migrant children in school and the whole binational education system. And so I met loads of amazing people working with the migrants coming through and into Mexico. And one of the most astonishing things about Mexico was how welcoming people were, of all nationalities to all nationalities. It's one of the most welcoming places I've been. You do much better than Europe, much better than my country. So we started off, I've got some pictures. Can I screen share?
You can.
Okay, let me I'm not good at this. Just let me open that. Okay, now if I go back to Zoom. That should work, yeah. Okay, this was the
There you
beginning.
go.
Oh, I've gone one too far. Wait, I'll come back. So I started off on the other side of the Mexican border with what's become better known since Donald Trump's castigation of it. It wasn't so well known then that the march that crosses Mexico from Guatemala and Honduras refugees all the way through from Tapachula up to Tijuana. And we joined the march in those first few days. And then we rejoined it in Tijuana, where we also, thanks to Kristin's introductions, worked with wonderful people supporting at that time a large number of Haitian migrants in Tijuana. And we did early child development work. This is wonderful Christopher, who was translator, Spanish teacher, and worked with me in the church. Christopher was an indictment of the professional aid system that I've talked about. While I was trying to help people in Haiti, he was living without school, which had been destroyed, without home, which had been destroyed, right next to the UN camp in Haiti in 2010. We did nothing for him, so he left for Brazil. Brazil's economy tanked, so although he was doing okay there as a painter, he's a Spanish teacher by profession, he had to leave, and a horrendous journey followed across Colombia, Panama, through Central America. And he got to Mexico just as Trump was closing the border to Haitians and saying if they crossed into the US, they'd be sent back to Haiti. So he was living in a church hall with his young children, not in the same room as them, but grateful for the welcome. And I'm glad to say that he got a job in Mexico as a teacher, something he probably perhaps would not have done in the United States, and I hope he's doing well now. So, as well as doing that work in the church hall, I started the photography project with children. I'm going to read a little bit here. If I'm going on too long, just tell me, stop me.
Okay.
The problem with making any plans to work with migrant children is that they migrate. Anne Power had also asked me to do a camera workshop with a group of Haitian children living in a shelter here in Tijuana. But 4 days ago, she discovered they'd all gone north to the US. Never mind. 2 days ago, we started the workshop in a local school with 6 entirely new participants, all of whom were slightly bewildered at being invited to skip class for a few hours without further explanation. Not surprisingly, they were somewhat shy, but when we went round asking them to introduce themselves and explain why and how long they'd been in Mexico, each said, "I did not choose to be here." Do you want to see my face as I'm reading? I'm realizing that I shut it down. Do you want to see my face, or is it better to see the document? I'm just trying to stop share. Okay. Then I feel I'm reading to you. Okay. All the participants except one are from families that have been deported from the US. Some a few years ago, others last year, one just 2 weeks ago. So if you'd like to take a camera for a day and show us something about your life here, anything at all, we'd love to see it, I explained. We want people to hear directly from you what it's like to be suddenly forced to move home and country, to see what you see. I shared the website and some of the Syrian children's pictures and stories. 15-year-old Noah gave a sharp intake of breath as I read a 9-year-old girl's description of her house being bombed, losing her Barbie doll, her grandfather dying. We did a short training with the cameras. I don't call it training anymore. I know if I just give them the cameras, they work it out for themselves in less than 2 minutes. Then we sent them out in the schoolyard to practice. Everyone was happy. Anne Power expressed some surprise when I said I was letting the children take the cameras home. Our risk, I explained. And as in Greece, they all came back the next day with cameras and pictures. Amazing Alex, the son of one of the Comité members we'd made technical assistant, translator, general project assistant, downloaded all the pictures at speed. Meanwhile, Noah trained 2 new participants on how to use the camera and all the rules, which children can now recite. Ask permission of your subjects. Keep the wristband on so you don't drop the camera. Don't lend your camera to anyone else. Don't photograph fights or policemen. And today we sat with each of them and asked them to select their favourite pictures and tell us about them. And what I'd like to do, stop that reading there, is just show you a few of the children's pictures, some of which are in the book. And it's the children's stories and pictures were the main reason for me doing the book, because it's their voices across the world that are so interesting. I just don't know why that's not moving now. I'm sorry, I'm screen sharing, but the slides are not progressing. There we go. So the children take pictures, and then I sit with them and I ask them to just choose their favorite picture, which will go on the website, and say a few words, or as many words as they like, about why they've chosen that picture. And what I found extraordinary is the picture, children living in these circumstances continually choose pictures about love and about beauty. And this is lovely Emma's picture of the birds outside her window. This is Francisca's picture. All the names are pseudonyms that the children have chosen for themselves. This is Francisca's beautiful picture of her mother, and there's a small story about it. This is Noah's picture of his friends that help me adapt to school. They make me laugh when I'm sad and help me when I'm in need. And this is Emily's picture of the garden in the school grounds that she goes to when she needs a place to break, a quiet place where I can be quiet. I'll read you a little bit more about Emily. While 15-year-old Emily was showing us her pictures of her best friends here in Mexico, she burst into tears saying, "I miss the US, I grew up there. Everything I knew was there. I really wanted to go to university there. I always worked really hard in school. I had such big dreams. I was promoted and about to be a freshman. I really want to be a doctor. Then just after I was promoted, I heard we did not get the visa, and I was so sad." And what I'd like to do now is just read you a couple of sections. Emily's children were also welcome to write stories, and I put Emily's wonderful story in the book. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, it's too long, but I'll just read you a couple of extracts from it. One day my dad started packing things and crossed the border multiple times to bring our belongings to what would be our new home. I don't remember being excited to move. I know I didn't think much of moving. We moved because my dad had gotten a work visa. He took the opportunity because he wanted my brother and me to learn English and lead a better life, free of bad influences. We moved into a small, pretty one-bedroom apartment that I shared with my mom, dad, and brother. After a year or so, we moved into a bigger apartment. The years went by quickly. Elementary school was great. I love my teachers and they love me. My parents said that I learned English in a couple of months because my kindergarten teacher was bilingual. She focused on helping us with our English. My parents wanted me to be in extracurricular activities, so I was enrolled in soccer and softball, and then I loved sports. I was always a shy person in school. It didn't help that it was around this age I began to notice I was different from most kids. Kids would ask me where I was from. It always made me uncomfortable when their expressions showed pity, and I told them I was an immigrant from Mexico. Sometimes they'd ask if I was an illegal immigrant. Some kids didn't understand what a work visa was. They assumed my dad was just a stereotypical Mexican immigrant. Even though my dad worked for a good company, they were partially right. It was hard for us to live in Woodside. We could barely afford the basic expenses, but there was always food on the table. I'll forever be grateful for my parents' sacrifices to keep us above the water. And then I'm just skipping on a bit. Even though 8th grade was the toughest year I had during my entire time in California, it was still the best in many ways. It was when I was really coming out of my shell. I started preparing freshmen in high school. I would regularly ice skate, go to the park, watch movies, and have the best times with closest friends. I went to cross-country practice, soccer tryouts at high school. Of course, that was before we found out we had to move. It was a day in June when my dad called all of us into his room and told us that his work visa had been denied. I don't know why, but I already felt that news coming weeks before. Even though I sort of already knew, it's not something you can prepare yourself for. Being forced to move in such a period of time, leave behind everything you grew up with for 9 years, was pretty devastating, to say the least. But this story has a happy ending. I'm just skipping now to the end of it. We had to look for schools on arriving. We went to 3 schools before enrolling in one. I liked how the school looked when we visited over the summer. Even though there were cons about living here, such as the poverty and difficult education, I actually fit in. I'm treated differently than I was in the US. People are much friendlier to me, and we have a lot more things in common. So after 9 months of being in Mexico, I'd say that I'm coming to terms with it. There will always be new friends, new schools, and new opportunities, no matter where I go. And the lovely thing is there's a continuation of the story on the website, because I was in touch with Emily during the first lockdown we had here and in Mexico, and I know that she is going on to university and doing well. So it's so fabulous to have a book where I can put the stories that the children have written themselves and my diaries, which fit the context for the stories. And then, at least with some of the children, have managed, well, they're not children anymore. She was 15 when she wrote that. She's a young adult now. Stay in touch and hear how they're doing. That hasn't, sadly, always been possible. And some of the children in this book, I've just lost. I don't mean they are lost. I mean, the mobile phone was Greek or French, and they're in Germany or in Denmark, and I have no connection with them. But the stories are in the book. I hope you'll look at them. I don't know how much time I've taken. I've got a tiny bit more I could read, but I could stop there. You tell me. I'm perfectly happy to discuss or whatever. I'm afraid I have no sense of time when I'm reading. Have I gone on too long?
Can you stop the screen sharing?
Oh, of course, yes.
Then now I can see my text. I don't know why
It's 22. I've got 22, yeah.
We have time for a bit more before we take questions. There's time for more.
Okay. I'm just going back.
And here's the book.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going back here. I think that was my last picture. Yes, I'm stopping. I thought I had. Yeah, I showed you all the pictures. That's it. I've got the share, so I'll stop that. So I just thought because I thought it was relevant, so I wrote all that. And then last year during lockdown, I wrote the last chapter of the book. And it says a little bit. It's just a page. I'd like to read you to sort of where I am in my head now. This is in the afterword. When I started these diaries in 2015, there were 65.3 million forcibly displaced people in the world. Today, according to UNHCR, there are 79.5. That is 1% of the world's population. 30 million of those are children. 85% of those displaced live in developing countries. And while Britain granted asylum to 15,000 people in 2019, Pakistan and Uganda each hosted 1.4 million refugees. Sudan and Germany had 1.1 million each, and Turkey 3.6 million. So perhaps I should not be surprised. George Floyd's slow, painful death in the United States and the Windrush scandal in the United Kingdom, in which we attempted to deport the children of citizens we had invited from the Caribbean to build the country after World War II, have reminded us of the entrenched racism and indifference to the suffering of others not like us within our own countries. But these scandals have also strengthened and globalized the Black Lives Matter movement. We are all now re-examining our histories and beginning to acknowledge that much of the wealth and privilege that the so-called developed countries take for granted was built on some 400 years of theft, murder, and exploitation. It touches all of us. I went to medical school in Bristol, one of the major ports in the transatlantic slave trade. I sat exams in the Wills Building, built to memorialize the family who made their fortunes off the backs of people enslaved to work in their tobacco plantations. And I went to concerts in Colston Hall, named after the famous slave trader and philanthropist of the same name. And there's the catch. Theft funds philanthropy. So how to protest? Pulling down Edward Colston's statue and rolling it into the docks from which his slave trading ships set sail might be part of an answer, although personally I would like him pulled up again and stuck in a museum with a detailed explanatory note underneath. But it's not enough. In Calais, one of the works that caught my attention was a poster stating, "Fuck your colonial borders. We're here because you were there." It was a less subtle formulation of the points Don Rito made to me in that church in Ventimiglia in 2016. The rich countries went there. They stole everything, and then they sold arms to create chaos, and in the meantime, they still reap benefits. If we're really serious about addressing some of the fundamental injustices of the last 400 years, the slavery, colonization, theft, and environmental destruction that have contributed to the global inequity that feeds the migrant crisis, we have to start to give back what we took away, Don Rito said. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynne.
Thank you.
I would like to. I don't know why I'm getting this feedback.
It's because of me. I have to mute myself. I'm muting, and I will just remind me to unmute.
Okay. Oh, that's so much better. Thank you. Okay, I just want to say that, first of all, thank you for that lovely presentation. And I think we can see in Emily and probably in other children the resilience of the human spirit. If you don't mind, Lynn, I'd like to open it up to see if anyone has any questions for you. If you have a question, do you know how to raise your hand? You can unmute, ask a question.
Or comments. It doesn't have to be a question.
Oh,
It can be a comment.
Okay.
Arguments.
Comments and questions. Anybody?
Well, I also would like to just say thank you very much for speaking to us and sharing your point of view. The thing that first impressed me about it is the resilience and the triumph of the human spirit in these kids that you talk about. And I very much appreciate all of this knowledge that you've shared with us.
I have a question and also a comment. I really love the way you talk about giving children their voice. And to me, it's so powerful that the children have a way of both communicating verbally and also with their pictures. Is there a website where people can connect internationally with other children and other children read other children's stories, or how? And if so, what languages do you have that available in?
Okay, so yes, the book actually came out of a website, again, funded and supported and helped by Rights and Opportunities Foundation. Thank you so much. And I started with a website because the joy of a website is you can update it and add to it, and it's kind of infinite. I mean, I was in Belize 2 years ago and we added Central American refugees, and then I was able to extend some of the stories. So just go, I put the address in the chat, migrantchildstorytelling.org. And please do enjoy. The book has about 10 stories in it and pictures, but the website has just loads. And we also have a connect page. So if other people are running similar kinds of projects or things, then we put a connection to them. You can write comments. You can't communicate directly with the children. The children are all, for their own protection and mandatorily, they're all anonymous, and as I said, I've actually lost connection with some of them. But you can certainly write comments, and the children can see your comments. They're not children, most of them anymore, because most of them were in their teens in 3 or 4 years ago. But they look at the site, they can see it.
I think I'd like to jump in with just to say that it's so moving, and I was looking through your website, and fantastic that you've captured on video these stories that touch people's hearts. But what I especially like is that there's many people putting out, stories, but not putting it in the context you put of the exploitation that created it. It's just like, let's go do good for these poor, unfortunate people. But I think it's so important that you put in the context of the exploitation, the overthrow of democratic governments that are trying to give resources, keep the resources for the people, and just the whole colonialistic attitude that's not attitude, but activities that have created this huge problem. And I think it's so important that we also look both at healing the individuals, but also at the big picture, which of course is to see the world as our country, that we're all one. And I think all of us feel that way. And when we feel that way and start thinking and acting that way, I think we can have tremendous power. So I salute you and thank you, and ask you just to share more about what you see that could be done in terms of the long-term picture of what kind of a world we'd like to create beyond these borders that divide us.
Well, I mean, the reason I wrote the book, I wanted the website not to have my voice on it at all, and it just to be a place where any child could put their stories in, thoughts or feelings. And then I decided I wanted, of course, blabbermouth, I wanted to speak myself. And I've always done that through blogs and diaries. And then I thought I'll try and put them in a book. And I was lucky enough to have Fordham University say, they'd like to publish them. And, you know, I could do this book. It's interesting because I offered it, I've written books before, and both the established publishers who've published my previous books said, oh, an anthology of these children's stories with your diaries, no thanks. But luckily Fordham, the Refuge Press, which is a small input at Fordham, were very kind and said, no, we'd love it, because they have a big humanitarian, international humanitarian course on which I teach. They know me quite well. And they were very happy. And they also know that, and you ask on the big picture, one of the reasons I can't sort of stay in UN organizations and big professional NGOs is that I find it quite impossible to remain neutral in the face of these issues. And I think it is a duty of anybody who witnesses these things to speak out politically about what must be done. That doesn't mean party politically, it means political with a small p. So, you know, if people are drowning in the Mediterranean because of our policies, then we have to condemn those policies. And if my government is taking 15,000 people when, you know, Turkey's taking 3.6 million, it doesn't matter that my government is so-called much more democratic than Turkey. We still have to condemn it and hold Turkey's welcome up as an example. You know, you have to speak out about right and wrong, and all of us can do it. You know, all it takes is for evil to happen is for good men to do nothing. Good women as well. So that's what I think we have to do, and the book is my way of speaking out, I suppose. I can ask you a question, maybe because it's 3 years since I've been in Tijuana. I know that, I mean, what do you feel about the crisis? Any of you, you know, what's going on there now? Tijuana was amazingly welcoming to Haitian refugees, and there were these human rights groups. I don't know if anybody's present from the groups that I worked with, but they were astonishing in the support they gave. What's happened? I've missed the last year, of course, under Trump's policies was terrible. Are things improving? What's going on? Are any of you involved with this crisis on the border?
Okay, Marilyn, do you have any comments on this? I thought I saw you were here somewhere.
Yes, first of all, Lynn, I'm in awe of your story. And I know someone here who just totally mimics your story. But before I tell you about her, I want to answer your question. Gerline Yosef was raised in Connecticut, but she's Haitian. And I don't know if you met her when you were here, but she is the core person working with the Black and Haitian community here at the border. And she was on MSNBC this week. So, you know, what she's doing, like you know, it's just so incredibly overwhelming, but they are working on the issues here. And then what I'd like to, I don't mean to diverge from your story, but I want the people here to know that there's something very similar to your story going on here. You have a sister from another mother who started something very similar in Kosovo when you did, but instead of taking photos, her kids made murals, and she now has 12 miles of 5x12 murals made by children in refugee camps and around the world. And she's about to reopen her museum just above us in Oceanside, and we expect to be an auxiliary here in Rosarito. And what I learned from Joanne was when she went to start painting with kids in a building that had been a hospital, she used sheets that had shrapnel holes in them. That's when I learned that they actually targeted hospitals. And it diverges a little from what you're saying, and I get your point, but when she reopens next month, Guy Dijoken will be here, and he's the director of UNESCO's Center for Peace, and we expect to open an auxiliary Center for Peace here in Rosarito, and I can use all the help of you people down in La Mission as we take on this project. And Lynn, I love you. I'm going to read your book. I've got migrantchildstorytelling.org written down. And Carol Clary and I go up to the border. We know the people that are running the show here, and just know that they're taking on your work and they're continuing it. And I'm so proud of them. And it's so hard. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn.
See that 2 or 3 hands are up. Just quickly, I've put my email in the chat. Marilyn, do email me and we can connect. And also, I'd love to, if there's a web link to that mural work, I'd like to put that on the migrant, because I love people to learn through my project of other projects. And yeah, I mean, there are amazing people in Tijuana. Kristen, who is here on the call, knows all the groups that I work with in Tijuana. So if you wanted to connect with them, you could do it through her. Kristen, you'll have to put your email or whatever in the chat. I can only see your black box. So what about Arthur and Irene who have their hands up?
Irene, did you want to say something?
Yes, hi. First of all, thank you so much. Just like everyone else, I'm just so grateful that you do this work and that you have this amazing attitude. We need millions of people like you, and I think, sometimes it feels like there's only a handful, and you represent us out there and our desires and our dreams for a better world. So thank you. And I hope to be in touch. I'd like to know a little bit more about Rights and Opportunities Foundation that's right there in Baja and that funded you. So I don't, maybe another time though that group could speak, really with more detail, but I see somebody's putting something in the chat. So thank you. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to hear this great work.
Kristen, do you want to briefly just say, because of the binational language program, which we couldn't have done anything without, Amparo and the amazing people in Tijuana. Do you want to just say something quickly?
Anybody? Who? What?
Kristen? Neil?
Who is it?
They are, but they're writing in the chat. Okay. There's someone else who has a chat, has a hand.
Is he talking about Via International?
No. All right. I just want to say that this information and the chat will be available. We will post it on the Tranquilo website, and we will be sending out email in the next few days or so with some of this information. So in case you didn't catch it, we will include it. And make sure that everybody gets connected. If you don't have information and it's in the chat or you don't get it, you can contact us through Tranquilo and we'll make sure you get the information that you're looking for.
Arthur, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had it before, but I just wanted to have the American Friends Service Committee. Are you familiar with the incredible work they're doing at the border? My daughter heads their DC office, but Pedro Rios heads the AFSC office there, and I just put their contact in there. And he is also doing some very important key work with the migrants at the border, and probably should be in touch with your organization if he's not yet.
I should say that I'm not working in Mexico now. And I don't have an organization, I work independently, but I join, if I am in a place, I look for people like that. So if I'm coming back to Tijuana, I hope I will one day, then I would very much like to connect with people like that. So thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I wanted just to say thank you. I don't have anything really to contribute to this topic, but I did want to say that it reminded me of Born into Brothels, of the children taking pictures. Here, I'll read it instead of explain it. It was a documentary in Calcutta's underworld that a professional photographer had gone over and given these children of prostitutes, cameras and taught them how to use the cameras so that they could document their lives, and tried to get these children enrolled in schools. And the parents were the ones who didn't allow the children to move forward. So the kids had an opportunity, and they had gotten to a place where they could pursue an education, and all of the parents, I think but one, had held them back. But that's what it reminded me of, and I think it's incredible work. And thank you for leading it, because it sounds like my generation can often be silenced easily without the spearheaded strength of your generation. So thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
I have to, it's very important that the idea for a camera project is absolutely not mine. So many people have done it and have done brilliant work around the world. Everywhere I go, I've met a Colombian doing work with children in Calais. I've met an amazing Italian woman doing work with children in Greece, many of them professional photographers, and they've inspired me. So it's not unique. The particulars of focus on the combination of storytelling and photography is something I haven't seen before, but I'm delighted. I have no copyright on these ideas, and I'm delighted. I've actually extended it to climate change work here in my village in Cornwall. And just so I live in this incredibly beautiful place, in case you can, that's the sea outside my door. And I work before lockdown, it all ended. In the local primary school, we took children out just locally, put cameras in their hand and said, take a picture of anything you love. And they just took hundreds of pictures. And then we're going to do the storytelling component and exhibit the pictures, but that all didn't happen. But now I'm hoping that we're going to do that bit during G7 when the world is coming to Cornwall, and have the exhibition then. And who knows, maybe Joe Biden will drop into Mosul and look at some children's pictures. Dream on.
Good happen.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, that was a very inspiring morning on the triumph of the human spirit. A lot to think about, things to do, people to contact. And Lynn, I thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry for any confusion about the time, our crazy time system. Somebody's not muted. But if you all would like to unmute and talk amongst yourselves, now's a great time to do that before we close out for the day. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Melinda, wherever you were somewhere, for joining us again. And we look forward to seeing you next month in April, where we have, what do we have? We have Tina Lifford. Anna, what is?
Yes. April 10th is Tina Lifford. She has a wonderful book called The Little Book of Big Lies. And Tina is coming back to speak at Not Church. The first time she spoke was 2013. Wow. So we're having her back, and she's a wonderful speaker. I'm sure everybody will enjoy her. And thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's here today.
And also, please join us to hear Lynn's wonderful poetry in May, May 30th. If you're interested, email me. I'll put my email in the chat. You may be on my list already, but if you're not, I'd love to have you join us and hear the other side of Lynn. It's an amazingly talented human being.
Yes.
All right. And also, if anyone would like to be and is not on our mailing list, you can go to tranquilobaja.com, and there's a link to sign up. So you will get all this information in your inbox. You will get notices of future events, special events. We have some interesting things coming up. We're working on a, what's that called? Forest bath project, specially designed for La Mission in our area. And that's about it for today. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon. If you have any questions or anything before you sign off, put them in the chat and we'll look over them again. We'll also repost we'll post a video of today's gathering on the website as well, in case you missed it or want to check on anything that you didn't see. So thank you all. Have a lovely first day of daylight savings time, which is always a very strange day.
She's so silly.
Kristen and Neil, it would be lovely for you to stop and see us one of these days. We'd like to get to know you.
Thank you very much. You've done a beautiful job here on this presentation, and we were very happy to be able to listen.
How many, Kristen and Neil, I don't know exactly where you live in relation to La Mission. I couldn't explain it.
About 800 miles south.
Oh, there you go. I had this vague idea you were closer than me.
Oh, we're a little closer.
They are a little bit closer. Well, it's nice to see you anyway. But you have to come up that way sometimes, don't you, when you drive north?
Yes, that's right. But in our era of COVID, traveling is just so very challenging. So I think participating in these sorts of virtual meetings is a great opportunity for us.
We're glad to have you. And Lynn, I see your husband. Hello.
Yes, I just thought I dragged him into the meeting just for you to see.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, everybody?
Good to meet you.
And Melinda, thank you for joining us again today.
Great to see all of you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go soon. Is there anything else you'd like from me?
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, Mom, I'm leaving now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Vicky. Nice to see you, Vicky. Bye, everyone. Have a lovely week. Hasta pronto.
Bye, Gina. I hope the weather's good.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
And bye, Irene. Bye, Richard. We'll see you soon.
See you guys. Doug, thanks for
Gina, Kathy, Irene, nice to see you. We'll see you soon. Deborah, thanks for joining us. Gina, Wade, welcome. Everybody, it's been great. Kathy, nice to see you.
It was so good to connect with you all down there. Really
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you gotta get back down here.
I know.
Oh, yes.
Soon. Soon, for sure.
Soon. We're all traveling soon. Yes.
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 Exactly. Bye-bye.
Great to see you, Kathy. Bye.
Am I doing the wave? The wave. Wave. The wave. Wait, maybe I can turn my head. The wave. Anna, do you want to stay for a second?
Sure, I'll stay.
Okay. I just want to chat with Anna for a minute. And who else? We've lost Janice. Who's that? John DeCecco. All right, I've got everything. I'm going to stop recording.